Okay, next up we've got our trusty old friend, the line chart. I'm sure just about all of you are familiar with what line charts are. As you may have guessed, they're commonly used for visualizing trends over time. So examples of when you might use line charts: stock prices by hour or by day, average temperature by month, profit by quarter, the list goes on and on. The idea is showing how a value changes over time. So pro tips: the first is that you can use trend lines, linear, polynomial, logarithmic, whatever you choose, to visualize patterns and visualize lines of best fit and use those to forecast future periods. You can also combine line and column charts or other types of charts to trend two variables on different scales. And we saw that with the spend and cost per click data back in section 1 of this course. So let's bounce on over to Excel. So once you're in Excel, make sure you've got the Line Charts tab selected. And as you can see, we've got a simple data set here just showing closing stock prices by day for Google and Amazon. And if we want to implement or insert a line chart, it's very easy here. Just select all of column A, shift-click column C, so now I have the entire range. You can go to Insert. Here are my line chart options. So as you can see, under 2D line, I've got your classic line option. You can do a stacked line, which essentially adds the values from the two series, which in this case doesn't make any sense. You can do 100% stacked, and you can choose to add markers or leave them without markers. Keep in mind, you can always add markers later, so I'm just going to select the basic line here. And there you have it. It's plotted out daily stock prices for Google and Amazon. Let's just give this a title so we know what we're looking at: closing price. And because I'm trying to look at two things here, I'm trying to look at the relative performance in terms of stock price between Google and Amazon, and I'm trying to see how those prices have changed over time. And this line chart gives me a great visual, a great insight into that. So to make it a bit more readable, since there are no stock prices that ever closed down in the $100, $200, $300 mark, I'm going to right click and format that y-axis and add a minimum bound of 300. That just helps to emphasize the differences a little bit, make it a bit more readable. So this is a great data set to practice using trend lines with. So why don't we go to Chart Tools, Design tab, and add a chart element. And here we can select any type of trend line we choose. Let's start with a linear, and let's apply it to the Google data. And there you go, it's added a linear trend line. If I want to apply a trend line to Amazon, I could go through that same process, or the shortcut is just to right-click the series and choose the Add Trend Line option here. And then once you've added a trend line, it becomes a new chart element that can be independently formatted or stylized however you choose. So I've already got my format pane open, but if you don't, you can right-click the trend line, choose the Format Trend Line option, and you'll see this view right here. So this is where, with either trend line, you can determine how it's defined: exponential, logarithmic, etc. Let's just keep the Google trend line as linear. And what you can also do is insert a forecast period. Now your periods are defined by how granular your data set is. Since we're looking at daily data, one period equals 1 day. So if we want to forecast out a month, for instance, we would type in 30 periods, and you can see that Google trend line extend an additional 30 days. So let's do something similar with the Amazon trend line. And we can play with polynomial here, make it a third order polynomial. Granted, this is overfitting the trend line a bit, but it's interesting to see kind of how it trends. And we can apply the same forecast here of 30 periods. And as you can see, based on these two trend lines, which may not necessarily be statistically valid, we might expect the prices to converge by the end of June. The last thing I'll note about line charts and trend lines is that you can also show the equation of the trend line or the r-squared value on the chart. And what the r-squared value essentially does is it indicates the fit of that trend line to the data set. So it's a number between 0 and 1, where the higher the number, the better the fit. So in this case, the Google trend line has an R squared of 56%, and the Amazon data has an R squared of 68%. So there you go. Very simple, very clear demonstration of how to use line charts and trend lines in Excel.